Hey Goblin, you've been really practicing those war drums. I'll bring the generic Goblin noise!
This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. With free weekly content and free shipping over $100, you can save 5% site-wide by using the promo code MTGMudsta. I'm also sponsored by Face to Face Games, Canada's premier Magic the Gathering store. Using the promo code MTGMudsta will get you 5% off site-wide, with eligible orders getting free shipping Canada-wide. If you're looking for a direct way to help the channel, please consider joining my Patreon and becoming a member of the Generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's game is my studio, and we've got Maxim, Seb, and Marie rejoining us. Marie is playing her Teysa Karlov deck, which is focused around creatures dying and is aristocrats. Maxim is playing Osgir the Reconstructor, which is kinda like Duretti in that it wants to bring artifacts back from the graveyard, only doing so as tokens and as two of them. Seb is playing Kalamax the spell-slinging dinosaur, and he's hoping he can tap his commander either through combat or with artifacts, so he can double up on spells. Last but not least, I'm playing Phenax, which is a mill strategy, although having played it a couple of times, I'm wondering if I should go to self-mill as opposed to milling my opponents. Marie wins the die roll and starts us off. She draws, plays a swamp, and casts Soul Ring. She then passes turn. Maxim draws and plays a Plains. Seb draws as well, playing an island, and passing. I play Choked Estuary, revealing a swamp so it comes in untapped, and cast a Hedron Crab. After that, I pass to Marie. Marie draws and plays a Godless Shrine, taking 2 so it comes in untapped. She then casts a Phyrexian Arena and passes turn. Maxim draws, plays a Mountain, and casts Star Compass. Seb has a Mana Confluence for turn, and taps it taking 1 to help cast an Izzet Signet and passes to me. I draw and play a Swamp. I get my Crab trigger, milling Seb for 3, and then pay 2 for a Scuttletide and pass to Marie. Marie draws from the arena, losing 1, and draws for turn. She's got no lands to play, but still has enough mana for Teysa and passes to Max. Max draws and plays a Darksteel Citadel. He then casts a Thran Dynamo, and then a Sculpting Steel to have it come in as a copy of the Dynamo. He then taps the copied Dynamo for a Burnished Heart and passes turn. Seb plays a Fiery Islet, and then casts Kalamax, losing some life by doing so. I draw and play a Tainted Isle, milling Marie, and hitting her precious land tax, a land, and Smothering Tithe. I then cast a Dimir Keyruin, and ship the turn to Marie, who now has a Vendetta. Marie draws 2 and loses 1, and plays a Plains in her main phase. She plays a Vindictive Lich, she moves to combat, and doesn't allow her Vendetta against me to prevent her from seeing that Max has tons of ramp, swinging Teysa at him. Max draws and goes to combat. He swings the Burnished Heart back at Marie for 2, and she blocks the Vindictive Lich. Before damage though, Max sacrifices it to find 2 basics and to play tapped. After combat, he casts Osgir and then an Ichor Wellspring, drawing as it comes in. He then plays a Plains for turn, and finishes things up with a Wayfarer's Bauble. Seb draws and plays a Forest. Moving to combat, he swings Kalamax at Max for 4. In his post-combat main phase, he casts a Wilderness Reclamation, passing and untapping his lands. I play a Sunken Ruin and mill Seb for 3. I then cast Phenax, and on my end step, Marie casts Vampiric Tutor, losing 2. Marie draws and plays a Luminous Broodmother. Going to combat, she swings Teysa at Seb for 2. Seb takes the hit, and Marie passes. At the end of turn, Max sacrifices the Ichor Wellspring to Osgir, drawing a card as it dies. Max draws and plays Sun Titan, bringing back the Ichor Wellspring to draw a card. He then plays a Great Furnace for his land for turn, and casts a Bladegrift prototype. After that, he sacrifices the Wellspring, and taps Osgir to make 2 copies of it, and draws 2 cards. On his end step, Seb casts Eureka Moment, drawing 4 and putting 2 lands into play, which includes a Terramorphic Expanse that he cracks for an island. Seb has a forest for turn and casts Commander Sphere and goes to combat. He hits me for 5 with Kalamax, and I take the hit. Seb then casts Krark the Thumbless, passing and untapping his lands to Wilderness Reclamation. At the end of turn, I tap the Hedron Crab to mill Max for 3. I draw and cast a Felwar Stone. I then tap the Crab to mill Max for 3 more, and play Bojuka Bog, exiling his graveyard. I follow up with a Solve the Equation, going to find Mind Grind, and passing to Marie. Marie draws 2 and plays a Command Tower. She casts Kakusho, and Seb responds by countering it with a Reinterpret. He loses the Krark flip though, but Kalamax still copies the spell, countering it, and then gets to cast a Lunar Mystic, while the real Reinterpret bounces back to his hand. Marie then goes to combat, swinging the Broodmoth at Seb and dealing 3. On her end step, I discard a Careful Study to make a Crab token from Scuttletide. Max draws and plays an Angel of Ruins, and Seb responds by recasting his Reinterpret again. Once more he loses the Krark flip, but still gets a Kalamax copy, countering the Angel, and Seb gets nothing off of casting it though. Max then uses Osgir to make 2 Angels from the ruins from his graveyard, and exiles Wilderness Reclamation, Phenax, Dimir Key Ruin, and Phyrexian Arena as they come in. Moving to combat, he swings the Bladegrift prototype at Marie, and she chooses to destroy Seb's Krark. After that, he passes turn. For his turn, Seb draws and goes to combat, swinging Kalamax at me. I don't block, taking the hit, and he just passes. I draw and cast a Treasure Cruise in my main phase to draw 3. I then play Lonely Sandbar, milling Seb for 3 with my Hedron Crab trigger, and pass. Marie draws and plays a Vanquish the Hordes to wipe the board. This gets her 2 Vindictive Lich triggers, and she has Seb discard 4 cards, Max take 10, and I sacrifice 2 non-existent creatures. With the Broodmother trigger on the stack, Seb overloads a Cyclonic Rift. After that, she recasts Sol Ring and passes. Max replays the Thran Dynamo and copies it again with a Sculpting Steel, and then plays a Basalt Monolith. He then taps the Monolith to cast Star Compass and Wayfarer's Bauble, and then plays it a Battle Mage's Bracers, passing to Seb. Seb draws and replays Kalamax. With nothing else, he passes. I play Cabal Coffers for turn, and recast my Felwar Stone and Scuttletide and pass to Marie. Marie draws and plays a Ganjo as her land for turn. She then casts an Exquisite Blood, but Seb responds by countering it with a Temur Charm. She follows up with a Cruel Celebrant and goes to combat, sending the Lich and Teysa at Seb. After that, she passes. Max draws and plays a Slayer's Stronghold. He recasts Osgir and moves the Battle Bracers to it, and then activates Osgir to make 2 Bladegrift prototypes and copies the triggers with the Bracers for a total of 4. He then passes after that. Seb draws and goes to combat. He swings Kalamax at Marie and deals 4. He then passes, while I discard an Abhorrent Overlord and Jace Memory Adept to the Scuttletide on his end step, making 2 crabs. Before leaving my end step, Seb casts a Decoy Gambit and gets a copy of it because of Kalamax. We don't want to give him cards, so we bounce the appropriate amount of creatures back to our hands. We then move to my turn. I draw and cast Mind Grind in my main phase where X is 5. Everyone mills until they hit 5 lands, and I pass after that. Marie draws and plays a Massacre Worm. This wipes out the Bladegrift prototypes and deals 4 to Max. Going to combat, she pings Seb for 1 with the Cruel Celebrant and passes. Max draws and activates Osgir, exiling Mere Battlesphere and copying the trigger. This makes him 4 battle spheres and a total of 16 mirror tokens. And Max then uses the Slayer's Stronghold on one of them. Going to combat, he swings it at Seb, tapping 16 mirrors to blast him for 16 and pump it by plus 16 plus 0. Seb sacrifices the Commander Sphere to draw in Desperation, but can't stop the remaining 20 extra power coming at his face, and after Seb gets taken out, Max passes turn. I draw and play Consecrated Sphinx, passing to Marie. Marie draws while I draw too. She recasts a Vindictive Lich, and then plays Kaya's Wrath to wipe the board. Max responds by casting Generous Gift on the Massacre Worm to not die. And the Wrath then resolves, with all of Marie's opponents getting drained for 3 by the Cooler Celebrant, and then Marie gaining another 3 from the Wrath. Vindictive Lich makes me discard 2, and pings Max for 5. Max draws, and recasts Osgir again. He re-equips the bracers to it, and activates his commander to exile the Iron Soul Enforcer, making 2 copies of it, and passes. I draw and play a Clearwater Pathway. Marie draws and plays a Shattered Sanctums. She then replays Teysa and casts Sanguine Bond, and passes. Max draws, going to combat, and he swings at me with Osgir, and gets the trigger from the Iron Soul Enforcer to return Alibu and Triplicate Titan. I take 4, and he passes after that. I draw a land, but with no action in my hand, I just pass to Marie. Marie draws and casts Seraph of Scales. She then plays out Kaya, Geist Hunter, upticking the Walker and passing turn. Max draws and casts a Solemn Simulacrum, finding a mountain, and then casts a Healy's Directive, where X is 11. He gets Soul Ring, Mirage Mirror, Ruin Grinder, and a Hedron Archive, all of which come into play. He sacrifices the Archive to draw 2, and then goes to combat. He swings everything at Marie, and with the Alibu trigger, deals 14 to her and scries 14. She blocks and trades with the Triplicate Titan, but still dies to the rest of it. After that, Max passes. I draw, and the best card I have in hand is a Thought Vessel, which I play, and knowing I'm dead to combat, scoop it up. Game review time. So unfortunately Phenax didn't do a whole heck of a lot. I got to use that Hedron Crab a little bit, but all it did was mill a few cards, although at least I did get to hit Maxim's Soul Scour. Speaking of Osgir, my goodness did he get a lot of value, especially with that Battle Mage's Bracers out. Getting 4 token copies of whatever artifact he exiled seems like a no-brainer as to being a good inclusion in the deck. I also think that white is a really good complement, although I'm sure some people would argue blue is better. We didn't get to see much of Seb's Kalamax deck, although it did seem to be a lot of spells, or at least instants, that he was going to get copies of and pump up his commander with. Marie's Teysa Karlov deck also seemed very much like a stock Aristocrats deck in Orzhov. I like a lot of the cards in her deck, and I'm always happy to see them in play, like Massacre Worm and that Cruel Celebrant. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.